okay.
저
어,
전에 방아서 갈성 데리러 아 그런 나라에 가서니 말이야 아니 봐.
음,
근데 다 데리 다 밀루토네. 담배 추워 말이야. 와름보 친 랭도 친다. 돈로 치반다 데 돈미 살랑도. 다 밀루도 스타트 뭐로 대화지 인저와죠 탐 센저주비. 제가 뭐 소나 뭐 사디 다 토들레스. 어때 토들이 되네. 근데 담배 추워 말이야.这仁波切，你嘛，他仁波切，江苏那的仁波切，连天甚至仁波切连脚，那么到甚至连送的仁波切忙忙通了，这说没去过去，这做了我们都做了了，对吧？这家就去下有嘛吧？我真正这是没有头的，他特别出嘛的呢，但几天的了，在没有头吧，他动了中，偏嘛动了，这是。
so now we are on the next set of actually 14. So there's the 14 things that are meaningless. And the first one is uh, like returning empty-handed from an island of precious gems. It is meaningless to ignore the sacred dharma after having obtained a human body. So now we have found this precious human body with the 18 freedoms and advantages. And that is all the result of vast merit gathered in many lifetimes in the past. So now that we have it, if we do not practice the Dharma, it is just like going to the ocean like they did in the old days to fetch jewels and then seeing, even getting there and seeing many jewels there, but not taking them and still returning empty handed, then that would have been a meaningless trip.
我的这趟在天桥没有头，几万上去三百几，我真的咱别去头的，干嘛上不可上不穷的，真的是，要不你们俩买基地的这，他人员那么些，听出来说那听着吃的个是，但是我觉得那从老的老把东西老的那种也是。
Mm. Um, so now we have found a precious human life with freedoms and advantages. And we have also met with the Buddha's teachings, and we have had the opportunity to hear the Dharma. So all of this present, if we do not practice it, but just remain distracted and waste our time, then this precious opportunity becomes spoiled, which is just like returning empty-handed.
哇，真的他你怕这里，从没求救不救了，听到你怕这些，他从没被求救不接才听到你怕这里，他可能是那穷苦的时候呢，请早起吧，那起码那么没了结吧，那的从没，他穷苦的时候，他这，真的请他像那个这种，但是可以在那用着呢，那不穷，车头那不用去，要不去车面昂这，用罗马头的车头那用个哇，我他甚至请他像那，这已经太科学啥的。我这前那他请他写的对，他这几天七八斤把手，秋课上了，几天七八斤把手，真的，你们那起码头把这是拉学啥的，就是起码来嘛噻呢，他我从不节约啊，不是满面从头听到，是也能见不着，这个现着个的，我真的我这让从他们的这么些，初二同学的是，上节点被过上那的。对你们俩起起在同步在一起，这里你们俩嘛几个起，对你们拉说些当拉说会战队啊，年中呀拉说把成都这么多钱吧，我成都钱了的，就是说话那种呢，对让拉稀稀的东西，起码蛮没听到在亚洲以上去了，可能蛮没听过，他在那亚洲去过上面，我听到见那蛮没听到，写了个大哥，那时候在恰当么说，都在说我的亚洲以上这个了。但是也不嘛的，提起说，现在今年弄个的，我这样的我别成了这种学啥的。
And then the next verse says, then the second one, like a moth driving into a flame, it is meaningless to return to family life after having entered renunciation. And so now that is so. so having entered the Buddha Dharma, so some enter the Dharma and they take vows. For example, they become ordained in the early parts of their life, and then later they may disrobe or they may just discontinue their Dharma activities, so just enter a worldly life and no longer practice, and then. That is just like a moth flying into a flame, like diving into a flame. So, but the moth thinks that the flame is pleasant. It's attracted by the light of the flame, but once it gets there, then it dies in the flame. And so it's just like that. If we become our preoccupied with our mundane affairs and develop thoughts of anger and attachment, ignorance. With attachment, look after our dear ones, and with anger, we try to destroy our enemies and so forth. And all of that, we may think that it's good, that it's necessary, just like the moth thinks that the fire, the light is good, is attracted by it. But that's actually a mistake, because when it reaches the light, the fire, it perishes in there. And so similarly, even though we think that our attachments and aversions are good or necessary, they're actually not. They actually harm us.
근데 다소 바들이 대미 총지 총투네 바네 장송점도 꿈지시와 당자의 통미스 나 대바미리 문제 용나 추치냐 자디나 편토요 말이었어 편토요 말이 그래서는 추치 두고 말와 소소 대바요 말와 추 대바미나 전에 장송점도 꿈지선 뭐제 카고 장송점디 다 장송원에 추망보 요러와 배테나 이레스 추치냐 야고제 용나 티두디디나 테나 이레스 我在江苏去忙包邮，现在看公司送的，看啥了吧？去马通话去，这看公司送的，这我通常没来的送出来的。
And then verse number 3, like dying of thirst at the shore of the lake, it is meaningless to to live near a noble Dharma master while having no devotion. Even if one stays right next to a Dharma teacher or a practitioner, if one is without any faith, then this physical proximity is meaningless. Even if you remain beside such a great practitioner, if there's no faith, there's no benefit in that. There's no benefit because you will not practice the Dharma. And that is just like you're standing next to a great lake, and you're thirsty, and even though there's plenty of water right in front of you, if you don't drink the water, you will die of thirst. And so that would be quite a meaningless thing to do, to die of thirst next to the water.
他是西巴的话，他早晚些在大城市边年波马送完呢，去那大连上东部天气差不多来从历史，早晚些生当然就说他早晚些有了，做什么今年呀，旅客们改装，也旅行做什么今年呀，旅客们改装，等下他们给资源那边来说，他早晚些有了。 我这早晚些才来说，早晚些才大的，他在你们俩去拿大的这边年波，当时这边年波马送为求解有呢，别想着想呢，行动就要得来这才来下手呢，他得来下手的行动不是就头个嘛了哇，我在那一边才能有意思，等下做就在怕对你们俩的情况呢，早晚些当时去年波马送呢，那可话就要做当时的时候，这做年波在马送呢，本来他求起的呢，偏妥协了，没办法的，抢着个意思。 我听啥的，但要么吧，当时是说，年不马上那天就来，这说剧里讲的，在当面都被写了，但这说啥像在想剧里娘们进呢，这说年不做特别听别从起过来是。
Then verse number 4. Like leaning an axe against a tree trunk, it is meaningless to have a Dharma practice that is not used to remedy the four roots and ego clinging. And so there's those four roots according to the individual liberation vows, the Pratimoksha. And there's these four roots, and that are related to that's this first the three non-virtuous actions of the body, and then the fourth one is one of the speech. And so anyways, there is four root vows, but the point is that whatever practice one engages in, whatever practice one does, it has to serve as an antidote to self-grasping. So to these non-virtuous actions. And if the Dharma does not serve as an antidote to self-grasping, then it is just like placing an axe next to a tree trunk. Just placing it there will not cut it. It's meaningless unless you actually pick up the axe and cut the tree with it. So that the axe will not cut the tree itself. So it is just like that. The point of practice is to cut through self-grasping. And even though you practice the Dharma, however much Dharma you appear to practice, if it doesn't actually become an antidote to self-grasping, then it is meaningless. So what actually needs to happen is that Dharma practice has to become an antidote to the afflictive emotions, to self-grasping. And for that, we must make an effort in developing the wisdom, realizing selflessness, and training our mind. So we need to make the effort to actually make our practice become the antidote, an antidote to self-grasping.
我就是没那里边种的，大瓦东巴一些，大瓦的东巴一些的，看到讲嘛，去年看大瓦，大瓦的那给下进吧啦，从那个些嘛，从说句的在嘛钱呢，这个当时出完没，是我在这个当时出了个嘛的，我的托上工上钱呢，等你当没多不写了，是你们那去过是当时今年不得当没多不写了的是，我这钱呢，在当没多不写了，但真的老人说有的去呀钱呢。看到到的，别从起过去的是。这嘛多大的的东部你不娘下里个，现在的主要的是变多好像有么了，听到我看到的是。
So then Milarepa had said that the view of this view of the wisdom of emptiness can become mere talk if certainty does not arise with regard to its meaning. Meaning that words alone about the wisdom of emptiness will not liberate self-grasping. And so therefore, one must gain a certainty in the meaning, and to do so, one must develop the wisdom of hearing, contemplating, and meditating. And not doing that, not putting in the effort is like just putting an axe next to a tree. If you don't lift the axe and strike the tree with it, if you just place it beside the tree, it will not get cut.
我真的，他他牛毛被去年不马上我买俺的，是他牛毛去年不多过的是他这里控制我哪里来的牛毛，他这牛毛被去年不的，他娘那去要做我这里对牛毛去年不马上呢，买俺他买俺十不修这买俺是没钱的，我这是十不结我那，那把面前拖把的方面是他那把这了，面苦嘛钱不在看给我考的那，他这偏个马拉过那把面这个从他啥过去的。他娘们被今年不多过去的，是他确实娘那起用的噻。
And then next verse number 5, like a sick person holding a bag of medicine, it is meaningless to have heard oral instructions that don't remedy disturbing emotions. So as is similar as before, the practice one does has to serve as an antidote to the afflictive emotions. So the main point of the practice is that. And if one's practice does not actually serve as an antidote to the afflictions, then one is just like a sick person carrying a large bag of medicine. So the point of having medicine when one is sick is that one actually takes the medicine, one eats the medicine. If one just carries the bag around, that is useless. There's of no benefit. And so in the same way, one's Dharma practice must also become an antidote to the afflictive emotions.
다 디파 체숑이나레 디파 도메요 마레스 첨다 상연세 그래서 예와스요 마레스 소소소 강 기타 용모님 뭐 로쇼나 我在在求是냠냠치네 데 용모님 치做我在求是的那就被通达了吧的那所就当呢的前냠냠치 거래 종표사래
And so it makes no difference what one is take by Chichon so
이거 제종라서 첨다라서
yeah. So it doesn't matter what Dharma it is, whether which vehicle, higher or lower vehicle, or which lineage or tradition it is. The meaning, the general meaning of Dharma is Chö in Tibetan. The general meaning of Dharma means that which kind of corrects or transforms, and this is what has to happen through the practice. So it is a correction or any transformation that has to occur from within oneself.
전에 지수마다리 배송을 가르송을 세나테 시소면지 시바소야 그냥 그도스는 언제 요사로 시소면지 도스 라미나나 마요 도스 라미나나 마보요 스라마예 타미 페체 투미시스 라마예 투미 강조만 시로 그래서 我这些送的他们在没些开始过，他们都是我的偏个嘛的，都是咩？其实都说啥过的，是马上的偏个嘛的，是吧？的，在哪一种可啥的吧？我咩的街上那边去的基本这个嘛的吧，是啥过的也种可啥的。
And so also Minerva said, so there's this medicine, that there's a medicine that even if one has a medicine that can restore the dead, kind of bring the dead back to life, a very powerful medicine, even like a demigod will die. So apparently they cannot die easily, but they can die if they don't drink. A god will die. So if they don't drink that nectar, this nectar of immortality, then just having it sitting next to you is of no benefit. So the way they become immortal is by actually drinking that nectar. And so similarly, Dharma practitioner, if you don't actually apply it, then if you don't practice it, then it is essentially of no benefit.
我真的大听就听，就是托他妈这边他你接了讲话呢，那时候可动起吧，他的同名是的，他就托接讲是，他就托接讲是那真的，看的是那他的白下的是讲，但是让就马起吧，他就托他马起吧，他你接了讲是，他你这猜的他，猜所接了讲的，我真的那时候可动起吧的，但那时候在蛮动的，就那时候肯动起来。 我真的，但老板动力说那俺就才说上街路啥什么来个，嘛来这种过的。
Minerva Cartonso?
老板东西的在重庆这的开些油啊，啥甚至别想东西多年油啊。甚至上街路啥的，这几个东西就的，我真的我这他你几个街这样的，但是同大可来表示呢，所以。 냠내야 되자. 새 카리나 티 소소 듀리 장. 티 통다 아zam도 다네. 그 지고레스. 테마토 저기 내소 티 만 통다 그런 거 소고 만 내소 만 통나. 그럼 뭐지 만 전동이 고만 동 그러. 뭐开始现的当中내소도现的当中这种코드 편도 시라요 말레스. 어때 인도 소소 기준을 다 소잘 거레스.
And then verse number 6, like a parrot reciting verses, it is meaningless to have a tongue expert in Dharma terms that are not taken to heart. So there is no benefit in just being able to recite the words of the Dharma and being eloquent in the Dharma terminology without actually applying it to one's mind. And so such a person is just like a parrot. A parrot, for example, can recite the Mani mantra, but it doesn't understand what it actually means. It just repeats it. And Milarepa said that if simple recitation would to bring about realization, then all these like village wandering, ritualists who recite different practices, they would already all be enlightened, but they're not. And so therefore one actually must apply the Dharma to one's mind stream, the meaning of those words. So one should not just train in the tongue, one's tongue in the terminology, but actually think about the meaning of it and really apply it, integrate it into one's mind stream. Because otherwise, one becomes just like a parrot, repeating some words, some Mani mantra, some even singing it in a really like a beautiful song, but it's all meaningless without applying it to one's mind.
다做在秋的是秋开在录用的是第些呢。在前面的在东尼在那是在拉拉起来，在说剧嘛讲那这些照片，啊嘞是从大是拉票的。他说给你通报在，但那瞧在钱包做坏钱包，忙不在拉那片头起来有嘛的，就加入是，嘛做这个片头起来有嘛的，种票啥，这剧比较的这听着起过来是，现在片头起个这是。
So the main point is that even if you study the Dharma and you understand the Dharma and you're able to speak of it, we speak a lot about love and compassion and emptiness. But if the mind is not trained in those qualities, then there's no benefit in just speaking about it. And for example, speaking about really high practices like Mahamudra and Dzogchen and so on, we can speak about those. But if we don't actually apply them in practice, there is no benefit in speaking about them. However lofty the words are, without training the mind, there's no benefit. It is meaningless. So.
真的他听就这工作有句嘛，金浪呢，金巴真的，老话确实老点渣的，老话确实老的周班渣的同名是差不多。他工作真的够加的吧？主要是加话加的，主要是加话的吧？有些相当我考都加的，我考都呢，嘛金呢的，过年不去块的话他，嘛金浪呢是金巴去吧？他这做就第三，他就去够加的，主要的话就第下怕金巴当时呢。这老话确实老话真的就土老空呀，胡老话把啥子空着哇？我这老话那个的，我这对这去哪在路边呢？这刚不掐着，他把个什么刚不掐呀？我要嘛。
Bakpa die Könige Bakpa.
但后那老爸爸这个嘛，说年报说的，这空着哇，我这老话那个听没？这老话这去哪？咱俺前边在家去咱们那些刚不掐着个，过往你嘛年报真得个嘛嘞？去投送那了哇？出垃圾弄这个。我这怎么报呢？偏拖起来要嘛的，确实报呢，过就去那同大的，可是呢，过去差不多多刚才对阵差不多强着可以。我这同大要嘛的是老话出完中的是，国家这把金巴当的出完中的那票出的。
Then number 7, like trying to wash a sheepskin coat in plain water, it is meaningless to be generous with wealth acquired through thievery, robbery, or deception. So we may obtain a lot of wealth that we give away, but it is a wrong livelihood, kind of wrong way of using those things if they are obtained through theft or robbery or deception or fraud. And then if one has obtained things through this way, it means if one has obtained wealth by taking from others in such ways and then gives all of that away generously. So that is just like so soaking a sheep skin in water just to throw it away in the end. So in Tibet, they are wearing the sheep skin like a coat, and to make it softer, um, you have to no, if you want to make it softer, and then you soak it too much in water, and then you take it out of the water, it will dry, and then if you just so first it softens, but then if you leave it out, it just gets dry again, and then it's even harder than before. And actually, not only that, also it gets damaged by that. So it's similar to that. If one uses one's no like things that one has obtained through impure livelihood, that to maintain a right livelihood, it is mistaken or it is meaningless.
다지랑 저 lokpa 공룡 나다 공룡 방에 부부 로충충 강에 막 호디디 lokpa 저기 닌게 쇼한테 원데 요 말하던 칭바 로 페소 나이는 칭바라고 해서 저라제 비스 공양한테 원데 그 공양 lokpa 저 황송나 lokpa 저 황 이렇게 좀 저라자로 lokpa 황송도 배제 또 좋아요 선조도 다 년보 소차토고 말이에요 그거 어디 가서나 이만 년보다 여러 다 저의 양샤제 황도 소년보 다有 말다对，出完了之后是他从大天的，人家都活着的，咱经常是讲光牛的，俺光牛的话给他。
Yeah, so maybe so there's this term about the sheepskin. It's probably something that is a bit foreign to you, because that's not how you use sheepskin. But I know about it because I'm from Tibet, and so this is how I grew up in Tibet. So when I was young, so we didn't have raincoats, and so you have like kind of a plastic made raincoats that protect you from the rain, but we didn't have any plastic that we could use. So what we would use is this sheep skin to protect from the rain. But in summertime, especially when it was raining a lot, and it becomes soaken in the water. If it gets too wet, then it becomes damaged. So first, actually, it gets softer from the rain, but then once it dries again, then it's even harder and damaged.
我真的是身边那老百姓呢，光说了就把呢，后下的呢马了点吧，咱这的同理是的。我真的，他身边了老百姓是身边老百姓是，他身边先把老百姓呢，俺就把会说噻，他有钱多忙不起个的啊。养那啥马就不养的话，身边肉多，这马就不说的话，那就可以。我这是缺呀，但是老的我这没得肉，真缺把会多。我才应当的是光说了缺吧。我当时这旅行呢，后下季的马的，这后下季的马的呢，这马的搞我用过嘛吧，搞我用，有嘛了，我的但是我就从不的身边成绩，马那些我这身边下老把几的，这光叫从去吧，那光叫从头年我用过嘛吧，这样的从没次。
The number 8, like handing a mother her child's flesh, it is meaningless to make offerings to the three jewels by hurting other sentient beings. So that is making offerings to the three jewels that involve offerings that are produced from harming others is meaningless. So, for example, that could refer to like blood sacrifices that some make. So you harm a sentient being, like you're slaughtering a sheep or a goat, and then you're offering that to the three jewels as a blood sacrifice. That is just like cutting the flesh of a child and giving it to the child's mother who loves that child. She would definitely never be happy about that. And so similarly, the three jewels are like mothers to all sentient beings. And then offering them what comes from harming those beings will never bring them joy.
我的你看从我送过的，这咋把出去送的话，在错那这样出现一些，忙不这样他写给的话，我只说错出现那这样那地方可以多出现，错刚下一回错这样的，我那些呢，咋把出去再送过来去，工作送去， 你都要嘛，首先是下是卡，这里要就像下是卡，当地你都要嘛的，这mark会是马下的这块的那种多。我的程度的这强了有啥的，但是身边人上街酒店的，身边他们这边那种这马上一点，这人的下季呢，这这那这马了个这边呢也身边老百姓呢。
So that's also why Chitin Sungen, also for example, Sarpatu Rinpoche, have said that we should not use meat for talk offerings for Gana chakras, because that will not actually please the three jewels, because that is just like offering the flesh of her own, offering a mother the flesh of her own child. So she would not be happy about that. So it is with all the Buddhas. The Buddhas love all sentient beings like a mother loves her child. So if one offers the flesh of beings to the Buddha, it is just like offering the flesh of a child to its own mother.
我真的就讲这种别强的，但可惜从讲一些阿拉成都起，那阿拉是说可惜的从讲也是人通晓得的，然是从嘛就是有的没说的话，我真从讲是说从讲国家有嘛那种就看什么子，或者我们去看然后成都从讲新这个也是那的，强这种，说生把第十万嘛从忙不通卡进那牛毛，去忙去看这个也是，这错的样的从讲的都是叫他们这个也是，这明了这用可嘛，这里。在打算着是什么的？
And so Chitin Sumgön also actually prohibited the offering of alcohol for talk offerings for Gana chakras. And so he said that is because if you offer alcohol during a talk, so even though some think it's required, if you drink it and you become drunk from it, then it only leads to trouble. So it is not needed. And he said that anything non-alcoholic like juice and so on is enough for a talk offering. Unless one is someone who has attained complete mastery over the afflictive emotions, and one is no longer controlled by the afflictive emotions. In other words, one has to be someone who is able to actually transform the alcohol into nectar. And if one is not able to do that, then it is not permissible to drink alcohol even during a talk offering. So that is what Jigten Songren had said.
我真的当我具体说呀，海马拉日记都是常常这有哇，我会去公办说，社区人员多少的，啥行程度有了哇。这工作他都是做东西都做讲的，这强这东西都是从嘛的，谁工作常能出百家，那有来说的。
Himalaya la
海马拉日记都是有的，那冇。
Literally.
然后日记当然没得了的。
Adio. So I also have some experience with that. Since I'm now from the Himalayan region, I've seen a fair amount of that. So, for example, I've seen some lay practitioners, some ngakpas, who would practice, and then in their temple they have a feast offering. And then for the feast offering, they serve alcohol, they drink, then they all get drunk. And then by the time it's evening, they start quarreling and fighting, getting into fights with each other, making all kinds of trouble. So I've seen that happen a lot.
我真的当地我现在让路上出去，这说把长途来吧呢，起来，你还不得了，同意思。我到这里去让路是让很多吧，去出去现在这出天阳台出天没的，在没东亚在出天上，在那出去是个的。说把汤子呢，咱说把在你们俩去呢，说把是咱们的，你们俩去下的，搞来叫说把有的。我真的在度假，他说可能提起说把公样的，没在度假了，那他说说把光怎么样？我这先等了空手学在啥的，提起阳他把起码头起，其实了在我是都在说把学我我起的呢，这起来加班这同比，起来先吃面的吧，吃面的吧。 10만 7만 선支持了哇我这7万这样的同米说这7可以把家多真的我的差不多多嘛
심해.
7선10매了哇10매 7만 선支持了哇
아, 저, 디, 심해 디티티,
我
가bat,
这可能没通噻可能讲不对讲不对
음,
我真的我这是你们中的这个同样不会的
음,
这中天呢搞了的甚至10매这个咋个出夏季当意思夏季意思夏什么意思在那个跟这次是秋月意思那个趁着这个呀地这秋叶
음,
这么秋叶的噻这次
음,
是秋年这个的噻
춘년이,
去年干这个的这次
음,
来线
아,
对吧？来线去干这的这次10매执行期的吧？
음,
这次是年干这个吧？
음.
好不错哎，
Discuato, imitic nas chasagi mesara,
马上嘛10매这10매
sevensena,
10매这起了，
ane cat, yara,
然后
shime,
开始这种下赛没事啊，
cat gilapsome,
然后开始这次讲，等俺下赛里面下班意思，
oh,
听年秋月不是老的噻，
음,
这次都点半啥子，这去年去干这个的噻，
음,
这次节嘛就有了啊，都是嘛
음,
出了啊，出嘛这
음,
节嘛这过啥都的噻。
oh,
这次都用的多的噻。
음,
这工作是这次都拿是我说那他用的多的看的是，那就是说的，真的，那你妈这新媒体给了 team 大的是，他经常那 team 大老公去看的片呐，我说的差不多的是 team 大的是。
음,
team 大下子真的新媒体是刚才穷的 team 给加入话题嘛，这个，真的这次都学双了嘛的，谁那么多的女人啥的。
음. So then, so then, so the next verse, number 9. Like a cat lying in wait for a mouse, it is meaningless to be disciplined and patient for interests of this life. Um, so when one's intention is not genuine, but more to show off, then even if you practice virtues and you say I'm very disciplined, I'm keeping vows and I'm practicing patience, it is not actually, that is not pure ethical discipline or pure patience. For example, if you practice patience just out of fear of maybe losing some offerings or to gain some fame, or you seem to practice patience, but on the outside, but then when you hear harsh words, actually inside the anger just burns secretly inside of yourself. So even though it's a perfect display of patience, that's not genuine patience. So being like that is just like a cat silently stalking a mouse, just waiting to strike, waiting to kill. So this practicing the Dharma with this pretense of with an insincere intention. So it's just putting on like a nice show while hiding a deception inside yourself. So it is just like you are a thief, just waiting for the right moment to get what you want. Like this cat stalking a mouse. So there's this story, Rupan, that I've heard. That is so there was a cat, and that cat announced, I am vegetarian now. I stopped eating meat, and I'm going to teach the Dharma. And then when announcing to the mice, come to listen to my Dharma teaching. So I no longer eat meat. And so then the mice are kind of wondering about that, and the mice then slowly kept flocking to listen to the teaching, so they believe it's true, and they came to listen to the Dharma. But actually, that every time they kind of got closer and closer to the cat, the cat just like, gobbled it up and ate the mouse. And but first the mice didn't realize what was really happening, so they just realized that there's just less and less mice. So why are then the mice are getting lesser and lesser? So they were growing a little bit suspicious, and they thought that why are we getting lesser and lesser? What is happening here? So then they decided, so that one day they decided to put a little bell around the cat's neck, because then every time a mouse would jump there, then it would ring the bell, and then they would find out. So then when when it started the bell ringing all the time, then the mice realized what was going on, and so then the mice no longer went to listen to the Dharma teachings.
nga so la bin nga so pe ku ma je sa ro ma ku ma je ku ma je sa re ku da ma ku ja ma bon ro sho sa ma sa je la sir ga ya ko ser tar ga yo ra da ka ja ga je yo ra ga la ko ra ha ko yo he
Ser.
ser mo da ji ma ta ser ke mo chi je wo sa ro ser ma ta ga yo ra sa da ga ta se yo sa re da ku se ku ja sa sa ro这小呢，这么长天呢，送了些过天呢，光大了这可对了，这了是，但这公安的都就说起拉奥啥吧，这么长天给一样的拉奥啥的，他过做这群家子面是啥，过做这个刚开始上那才能送他过没家，他们家小子你那都是过去，
kurang了。
哦，可能他们家小子，但过做这群家面是啥，这光大年人干是吧？他就年过开的样子的。Targanda tanto yung tis devo no mi mata ko ja khare da son ni ko targa ni devo do za la arse te ma san ti ta ga ya ko je yoro targa ya ko je te ko mi go ni ju shi se ka te ko tsian targa ki cho ma zo ka yu de la do ma ti mai ma bo la pi do ko mo get up.
So there's also one story from Drupal's homeland. It says so that there, in his like homeland, there was a thief, and he was just stealing a lot. And so there was this one family who had this gold and painted kind of a silken, it looks like a brocade or something. And so they had this really precious kind of golden brocade, and he wanted to steal that. He knew that they had that, and he wanted to steal it. So one evening he went there, and he asked them if he could stay overnight, and they actually welcomed him. And then in that moment he really didn't want to steal. He thought that I am taking a vow to myself. He vowed to himself, I'm not going to steal anymore, not going to do it. And then they asked him, so do you need a pillow? And he said, so then they said, well, like a nice silken pillow would be nice. And then they gave him that brocade, and then this pillow that they had, this precious one. And then once that was under his head, the vow was out the window, and he took it and he left. And he was actually quite famous in Ruben's homeland. Everybody knew his name.
咱城里的现在也会有马来说，咱是追求自己不偏给马来说，咱就样的，他从那你那就是年里也会来去过来是，就是去追咱这个马来是来说的。
But the point of this verse is that there's no point in making a display of ethical discipline and so forth, because if it is just a pretense, then there's no benefit in that. So that Dharma is something that we have to practice from the heart. It should not be a pretense.
真的他挺有的，现在年长他你可多别去给我拉不起不起吧呢？人那人不起，不是话多不起啊。不是话是那他行动人反正呢。
行动的呗。
没事，他是不是话是呢？行动看不来，行动不是话是真多点呢。我的不是话多不起，不是话多不起，看样那他帮先是八了八，先多不。这把上的说没意思，我的钱的，那咱别把说一下，然后王先生之类，抢有了，抢你这他妈就有了，我的帮完了是吧？我的帮完这把说起来，这多多的来说是吧？我的钱的，
一心诺不嘛的吧？引起了一心诺不是了，
一心诺，他不一心诺拉不多，一心诺， re
tambo de okay.
wa ta chen de la
Mhm.
chen de nian da chi ta chu chi ya je yo ra zai mei nian da chen de dan ji tian chu ji tang zhe de nga rang chen de chi de zai chu chi na nian guo zai do ba ta rang me zeng do ba da nian ba ji tian chu ji do be chu chi na ge wa ka si la chen bo chi na ne yin de yin de za chen bo wa但不是那把多可惜是多对那啥是把多过节，帮这样的我把多在我才节吧，那的是把这个像你啥提起咋晓得去帮我帮我生他真像的你是两只他嘛是帮我了，这边就起来要嘛了有样的，我提起把这下来多节才节的人来你知道我的意思他从的，这样的气的，另外这起码什么麻烦这样的气的，现在的努力的把节的老下，是从那才是。
And then verse number 10, like trading a wish-fulfilling jewel for a pile of ordinary gems, a load of leftover chang mash, or a single bag of tzampam, it is meaningless to perform ostentatious virtuous actions out of a desire for mundane praise, fame, honor, and gain. So performing great virtuous deeds while actually being controlled by the 8 worldly concerns is meaningless, in other words. So even if we do great things, if the motive is fame or wealth or reputation and so forth, the 8 worldly concerns, then all of these offerings, very elaborate offerings and so forth, it is just like exchanging a wish-fulfilling jewel for like a leftover chang mash. We're not sure what that means. So it could also be some kind of fruit or something if that's not so precious, or just a single bag of tsampa, or the dregs of beer, of the leftover that remains when you've brewed beer. So beer dregs are not very valuable. So if you are trading beer dregs or a ball of tsampa for a wish-fulfilling jewel, so if you trade the wish-fulfilling jewel away to get beer dregs in return, that would be meaningless. Then there's little value in beer dregs. So basically it means that even if one practices all kinds of virtues, but if one doesn't practice them thinking of future lives, then they're meaningless.
我真的大听就稀罕这啥的，真的忙脱缰上去，他没绿吧呢？上去他妈绿吧呢？没吧？奖励性吧，但他的同意思啊。我真的他在头发忙不起，在球忙不脱，他上去了，俺嘛他妈把刚才才拿去没没吧？我这没把可能他那啥奖励成奖励着我这样那啥，但平常变色了，老成着我。我这奖励性吧，真的，他的同意思，没把就当那啥报这个是吧？我真的，我在这里嘛，这种我敲在前部门啊，做块前部，但我嘛前部，甚至可能那，但我嘛不拖你公司门啊，就那说，他娘们开始去呢，他说娘们要不上街今天都就点球忙不拖呢，他娘们要不买鸡呢，然后就他妈的说那的，他那也是明白种新的嘞，但没先把拍片拖嘛的是，同大才来说，没先把片拖出过嘛的是，然后就他妈的，这面别没先把不让那啥家，没先把片拖嘛吧。没把先把片拖出去嘛了，真正强着的，这种比赛他从哪去？身边先把片拖出来，过来和我的是那学生。
And verse number 11, like a doctor struck by an incurable disease, it is meaningless to have studied a lot and yet remain an ordinary person. So even though we have heard much Dharma, if one's mind stream remains as it is, just ordinary, then all this Dharma is meaningless to oneself. So just like a doctor, if a doctor treats others, but then himself he contracts a terrible disease. Maybe he gets cancer and so on, or some other terrible disease. Then he can't help anybody else. He cannot cure other patients because he himself has the terminal disease. And so, in a similarly, if we may say that I've heard, got all these teachings of Mahamudra or Dzogchen and so on, but then or one thinks that one understands the Buddha Sutras and the Tantras and so forth. Even if one knows all of that, if one knows every single syllable of those, then when negative conditions arise, then again the mind becomes ordinary, and one is just like this sick doctor. Even with vast learning, if the mind stream is not transformed, essentially what it means is that one cannot benefit others. Just like when the doctor himself is terminally ill, is sick, then he cannot heal other sick people.
전에 다 진조들이 남아케라 냠뇽미바네 축고 황소 데메 미바탄다데 소미스다 남아네 케바 보바치 소소주라 냠뇽미바치 냠뇽미바치这两个축고 전 조전나 저는我忙不接用呢데메 미나데 고 세야요嘛我真拿恰到个是这卡也要开发这소소주라 맞아라치这我这在那个的去用的时候就你们那是这样写个嘛的是，我这在拖了出这里拖从在去运行的，他们几乎那些大片个嘛的是的，那他的出国工作那知道那说是因为那说上下看着呢，但国家票的拍就要嘛吧，我在哪里查着的是，说你们那提就其他家的嘛，他们刚刚在提供你们那给这片头个嘛的是。
And then next verse, like a rich man without the key to his treasury, it is meaningless to be knowledgeable in the oral instructions, but not apply them in practice. So one may be skilled in various instructions, but then still lack actual personal experience in them. So one may know much, but without the actual experience of those things, there's no benefit. It's just like you have a treasure chest filled with precious substances like gold and silver and so on. But then if you don't have the key for that, you have all these possessions, but you can't access them. You don't have the key, then the chest alone is useless to you. So if there is no key, then all the wealth inside cannot be used. And so in a similar way, if you have all this wealth of knowledge without practice and experience of that, then that knowledge alone brings no benefit. And that becomes evident once you encounter hardships, when you then encounter difficulties. If you lack the actual practice, then all this knowledge is useless to you.
我打听就起来，在让去出去同嘛拖把钱了一般呢，龙王去把那个从没，在让我那些娘们子自己从多过来是，在嘛拖把在那在钱了一把真的，没龙啊这个龙啊，去从那当着头嘛吧，龙啊你主要有嘛吧，这真那一掐着过来是。
So the next verse, number 13. Like the blind leading the blind, it is meaningless to teach others the significance of a spiritual practice you haven't realized yourself. So teaching others without having realized the meaning of what you're speaking about is meaningless. So you must first gain experience in those teachings. Otherwise, you're like a blind person leading another blind person, which is impossible. So without realization, instructing others is the same as a blind person leading another blind person.
我在这里嘛，这东西那啥，那就反正我的，他的穷一些，娘娘那做的时候呢，那路们说吧呢，那件事情基本上的，同意思，我在这天啥，他的穷娘娘是他便宜娘娘去过的哇，我这买几把去，他娘娘买几把，让他东把你啥可以那里那边搞很多，东把你从嘛东把你是呀，在那边搞很多，我这里他买的，他现在也买这不说的哇，我这娘娘做的时候。 ale这里面的话，他的穷人，他的穷人娘娘的话，他的穷人娘娘在做的时候呢，我这他的穷人，他这的点呢，这些人可通，些人咱们马上话起，他这个可通兄弟呢，那路通嘛，做是那路这东把你通多出嘛的是，多呀，做个嘛的，们做是了，们做是，他这个这个的是吧？这其他这个什么吧？那路通嘛，做是别强的强，那是在那个在思路的吧？ 这现在这的，我这个前头按照我的是干这的，是那我那些人堂是这人堂有嘛吧，我这那强着个的是。
And verse number 14, like mistaking brass to be gold, it is meaningless to hold experiences arising from methods to be supreme while neglecting the search for the natural ultimate state. So clinging to experiences that arise from a method for skillful means without seeking the actual ultimate truth, the nature of mind, the empty nature, is meaningless. So we need to also seek wisdom. So if we think that the ultimate can be gained just through the method without wisdom, so if we just cling to the method as supreme without seeking the ultimate natural state of emptiness, that is just like mistaking brass for gold, and brass is less valuable than gold.
我这里这种多，可见呢，他工作给强求线上，先把人家娘用的确的送。我真的同他们其他大把什么东西他马上的提同大是的，同他们那路多呀，什么马上呢？我打真正我的种确实，但现在民那好跑到进步，我这要嘛的这都对吧？是那种种学吧，我这对吧？我都对吧？这有点是那种，但民那跑到进嘛，我那面都没些，就是恰都是没的这。没弄没明白，希望找谁是哪样没些课，从前看了就是我这没的忙活这，哪么些个嘛，从前才能做些个嘛，是我在那里，现在明天才强着个那种有了，我在真正大学生的。
And so although love and compassion are of great importance, but without the wisdom of emptiness, ultimate wisdom, also that is meaningless. It is said in the condensed perfection of wisdom that the five perfections without wisdom will not lead in themselves to enlightenment. To reach enlightenment, one needs wisdom. The five perfections without wisdom is like a blind person walking a path without any sight. They cannot reach their destination.
我真的，他同米比丘就比他当中那些，他是工程长期，真的是国际问题特别的话有是。
So now this completes those 14 things that are meaningless, and we stop here for this evening, and we hopefully continue next week.
这里给先的是几点钟工？
Glorious, holy, venerable, precious, kind, root, and lineage lamas, divine assembly of Yidams and assemblies of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, heroes, and heroines, Yogini and assembly of Dakinis dwelling in the 10 directions, please heed me. By the power of this vast root of virtue, may I benefit all sentient beings through my body, speech, and mind. May the afflictions of desire, hatred, ignorance, pride, and jealousy not arise within my mind. May thoughts of fame, reputation, wealth, honor, and concern for this life not arise for even a moment. May my mind stream be moistened by loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta, and through that may I become a spiritual master with good qualities equal to the infinity of space. May I gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra in this very life. Even at death, may the torment of suffering not arise. May I not die with negative thoughts. May I not die confused by wrong view. May I not experience an untimely death. May I die joyfully and happily in the great luminosity of the mind as such, and in the pervasive clarity of Dharmata. May I in any case gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra at the time of death or in the bardo.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
真的，这是国际蛮结是吧？
See you next week.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.